Hi, my name is Raul Rodriguez. We specialize in grafting vineyards. You showed a slide that the grower bought a property and it was grafted. Did he, that particular plot, did he see any result to the contributor of the grafting, drive any additional variability to the water stresses within the vineyard?
I don't understand the question.
I guess the output of yield to the vineyard. Did you see any additional output, any additional variability to the yield?
From being grafted?
Yeah.
Other than some table grape vineyards, all our vineyards are grafted.
No, it was top worked, should I say, not rootstocked. It was top worked.
Which vineyard is that?
It's a figure that you showed. I'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
You mean like a three-part vine?
The grower had bought the vineyard, and you showed a picture of it being grafted. It was grafted, top work, existing top work. Yeah, first over varietals.
That was in a Zinfandel vineyard in Arvin, but we didn't do variability trials in there. What we've seen with top-worked vineyards is like it occurs very regularly in the San Joaquin Valley, so it's mostly Zinfandel vineyards that are being top-worked now. But I guess we'll see. I mean, Sauvignon Blanc was top-worked to Zinfandel. Now they removed Zinfandel. They're putting in something else, most likely Pinot Gris. We haven't seen that much effect on variability from that because, in the San Joaquin Valley, it's just water availability and plant mutagenesis that's affecting these things. So we haven't seen that much effect from that, in my experience.
I had a question on the mechanical leafing that you did, you showed pre-bloom and at pea size. You didn't see any effect on crop, but you saw the total anthocyanins increase in pre-bloom. Mm-hmm. What variety was that, and what kind of climate was that in? Because where we're at, in cool climate, we have a tendency not to want to leaf before bloom because our canopy sizes aren't that big yet. So can you elaborate on that?
So those studies, we did one here in Creston for 2 years by the airport here in Paso Robles. One was in Tocolon in Oakville, and the other one was in San Joaquin County in Lodi.
So they're all in warmer climates, basically, and were they all on Cabernet? Or?
One was Merlot, the other two were on Cabernet. So, but Paso Robles is much cooler than Napa.
Do you have any concerns, though, doing mechanical leafing pre-bloom, let's say, in Pinot in cool climates where the canopy's not as big?
I mean, Pinot is a very iffy cultivar for me. I mean, there's about 1,500 clones. It's essentially still wild, in my opinion. So I would tread very lightly in Pinot Noir. But with Pinot in cool climates, since most of the flavonoids are monosubstituted, I don't know what the end product goal would be with Pinot. If it's like going into a still wine, if you're looking for like a deep color and like a astringent mouthfeel, post-fruit set leaf removal is probably what's going to work the best with Pinot Noir.
Which is what we do. I just
right.
The acres we have, it'd be nice to be
right.
to go in pre-bloom. But
yeah,
I guess
because pre-bloom leaf removal exposes the berries for a longer time, so you would degrade those tannins to more manageable levels in these climates that would put a lot of astringency into the berry early into the season. But the longer you hang them, the more these proanthocyanins polymerize, and will affect the mouthfeel. So, shorter exposure with Pinot Noir in a cooler climate is probably the best.
Thanks.
Just curious about the manufacture of the suckering machine with the paddles and the brushes. Is that an Oxbow unit or? Who makes that?
No, Oxbow got out of that business. Now it's a company out of Fresno, California. It's VMEC.
VMAC.
So you talk about anthocyanins, but what about titratable acidity? Because if you're exposing the fruit at a really early onset, your acid levels are kind of going to just go down because the sun's going to break it down, correct?
That's correct.
So you're just saying, fix it in the winery?
Well, a lot of fortunes were made selling tartaric acid in Fresno.
Hey, I'm not saying you can't do it, but...
Let me ask you this question. What do you want the titratable acidity to be?
I mean, that's just the winemaker, right?
Yeah. Because titratable acidity, even when we worked in desert climates, if the cultivars match correctly, for example, a majority of Pinot Gris grown in Kern County in California, it comes in at 3.4, 3.5 pH and about 0.7 TA. So if canopy management is done correctly, it comes in correct. But organic acids with the warming trends that we have seen in the last 2 years, it's been more difficult to manage, especially in the North Coast. So people are looking at more at a partial solar radiation exclusion in these upright canopies that you have in Napa and also in Paso Robles. But organic acids is the first thing that degrades. Next, anthocyanins degrade very rapidly.
Hey, Kaan, for the variable rate mechanization equipment, how accurate are those?
So right now we're at 100 millimeters, which is essentially 4 inches. But when you have rows that are half a mile long, 10 centimeters is nothing. But in North Coast, it becomes more of a problem because vine spacings are now 7 by 5 feet, roughly about 1,245 vines to the acre, and they're carrying at the most 24 to 32 clusters per vine. So their precision is not there yet. But in our high quad systems, in our Lodi, it's there.
Yeah, on your canopy reflectance sensors and soil sensors, I saw your slides showing that all this was operations were done on the ground. And is there technology out there that are people using these with doing this with drones, with GPS or anything like that?
Well, of course. Sensors are sensors. You can deploy them any way you want. In fact, a lot of this data is freely available if you're in California from Planet Ordered. The problem with sensing it above is that how we grow grapes. They're grown in rows. They're essentially cereal boxes on their sides. And a lot of the interesting stuff is happening on the side of the canopy. So if I were growing almonds or peaches or nectarines, that's a globular structure that you can see from above very easily. But with grapes, a lot of the stuff is happening right in the fruit zone. That's why we went with that approach. But you can combine satellite imagery with in-ground sensing to develop a 3D model of these canopies. But then again, we don't have the infrastructure in viticulture to do these because, in the grander scheme of things, grapes are such a minor crop compared to say rice, corn, soybeans, etc. The private interest is not there to make these investments to the, data processing capabilities. But that's me on my soapbox. Doing the drones, it's fine, but you have to take someone out there with a truck, get licensed, and fly around, then bring it in, process the data, geolocated, etc. So it will add 2, 3 more steps to get the data you need. But with in-ground sensors, it's recorded and geolocated every second. So you have a very dense data set. So a 30-acre vineyard will give you about 8,400 data points. You probably don't need it. You don't need to drive through every row, depending on the row spacing. Let's say if you're on a 9-foot spacing, you would do about every 4 rows. If you're on 11-foot spacing, you would do every 3 rows. So I mean, you don't have to measure every single vine because we don't manage vines individually, or at least I don't think we do.
We may in the future.
Maybe, if it's worth enough.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Adoption. I'm sold, and I made wine commercially for a while. I love what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Are the customers gonna accept fruit that has been mechanically formed? What are you hearing?
Well, I mean, depends on where you're at. I mean, there's no problem accepting mechanically harvested fruit, but as more and more winemakers work with it, they like this fruit a lot better because it's coming in at the composition that they want. Because I mean, when we started the work, God, I don't know, like 10 years ago, the main thing was saving costs, but we end up making a better product in the field that the winemaker could rely on. Because if you can make the same plant year after year, taking that human element, you have a lot more control over the thing. For the customer acceptance, there has to be an economic necessity. So 10 years ago when we started this work, it's like, this is never going to fly in California. We have so much labor coming in, but I manage a research station for University of California. We have to pay premium rates. We do pay premium rates, but we end up paying $42 an hour to pick grapes. I mean,
Right.
my wife's an attorney. I don't think she charges that. Well, maybe she's not a good attorney. So, but I mean, there has to be an economic necessity for these things to happen. I mean, 35 years ago, no one thought tomatoes would be picked by a machine, but now you hardly have any tomatoes picked by humans.
Mm-hmm. So the push here is going to be economic.
Well, it has to be economic. Otherwise, why fix it if it's not broke?
Well, if you were doing things that were producing really high quality fruit.
Yeah, but I mean, do people get paid premium for improving quality? That's another discussion.
Around here they do.
Yeah.
Getting back to the basic process, and Craig brought up adoption. What are the challenges? Well, you hinted at that some of your study was done in Creston, but what are the challenges with our undulating topography? What are the challenges with additional site preparation to adopt the mechanization of these processes?
Yeah. The number one challenge are the trellises. I mean, according to our survey, we have 17 different trellises used in California, and the most variation is on the coast. So the simplest trellises work the best. The equipment work, up to 15 degrees of slope, so that's not a challenge. But the biggest impediment now, in my opinion, for adoption is the trellises that we have put in. So the single high wire works very well if you can live with that. But the high quads work very well. But I make my home on the north coast now. We have these mini lyres with 18 sets of catch wires going in. It's not going to work with that. So the simple trellis, usually about a 2.5-inch drop every 1,000 feet, gentle slope. If you're on a flat ground, it works very well. But in a hill country, I mean, we ran these studies with St. Michel in Washington as well. So I mean, they're always on our hillsides. I don't see that being an impediment. The biggest impediment right now is the old trellises that we have. But if you're starting new, it's a blank slate. So I would set it up as a single high wire or a high quad. Those seem to be high productive, good quality, easy to operate on. VSPs are okay trying to convert, but the catch wires seem to be problematic to move up and down. And I don't know how much VSP we'll see in the future in California with all the sunburn that we're getting right now.